Myōkō was the lead ship of the four-member Myōkō class of heavy cruisers of the Imperial Japanese Navy, which were active in World War II. She was named after Mount Myōkō in Niigata Prefecture. The other ships of the class were Nachi, Ashigara, and Haguro. Background: Myōkō was approved under the 1922–1929 Fleet Modernization Program as the first heavy cruiser to be built by Japan within the design constraints imposed by the Washington Naval Treaty, and was the first of the 10,000-ton cruisers built by any nation. Naval architect Vice Admiral Yuzuru Hiragawa was able to keep the design from becoming dangerously top-heavy in its early years by continually rejecting demands from the Imperial Japanese Navy General Staff for additional equipment to the upper decks. However, during modifications and rebuildings in the 1930s, the final displacement rose to 15,933 tons, well over the treaty limits. Design: the Myōkō class displaced 13,500 t, with a hull design based on an enlarged version of the Aoba class cruiser. Myōkō was 203.8 meters long, with a beam of 19.5 meters, draft of 6.36 meters, and were capable of 35.5 knots. Propulsion was by 12 Campon boilers driving 4 sets of single-impulse-geared turbine engines, with 4 shafts turning 3-bladed propellers. The ship was armored with a 102 mm side belt and 35 mm armored deck. However, the bridge was not armored. Myōkō's main battery was 10 20 cm 53rd-year type naval guns, the heaviest armament of any heavy cruiser in the world at the time, mounted in 5 twin turrets. Her secondary armament included 8 12.7 cm 40 type 89 naval guns in 4 twin mounts on each side, and 12 type 93 long lance torpedoes in 3 quadruple launches positioned below the aircraft deck. Myōkō was also equipped with an aircraft catapult and carried up to 3 float planes for scouting purposes. Myōkō was laid down at the Yokosuka Naval Arsenal on the 25th of October 1924, launched and named on the 16th of April 1927 in a ceremony attended by Emperor Hirohito, and was commissioned into the Imperial Japanese Navy on the 31st of July 1929. Although the first ship in her class to be laid down, she was the third to be completed. Myōkō was repeatedly modernized and upgraded throughout her career in order to counter the growing threat of airstrikes. She eventually mounted 52 Type 96 25mm at-A air gun guns and 2 13mm AA guns after her final upgrade. Operational history. Early service. All of the Myōkō-class cruisers were assigned to the Sasebo Naval District, forming Sentai 4 of the IJN 3rd Fleet, and trained as a unit during the 1930s. During a naval review off Kobe on the 26th of October 1930, stacked gases caused problems on the bridge, resulting in a lengthening of the forward smokestack by 2 meters. During the first Shanghai incident of February 1932, the cruisers escorted the transports conveying elements of the Imperial Japanese Army to the continent. In December 1932, the Myōkō class were placed in reserve as the new Takao class cruisers were commissioned, becoming the new Sentai 4, whereas the Myōkō class ships were shifted to Sentai 5. Between 1933 and 1935, all Myōkō-class cruisers were retrofitted with the fixed triple torpedo launchers replaced by 2 quadruple rotatable launch, and the secondary guns upgraded from 12 cm 45 10th-year type naval guns to 12.7 cm 40 type 89 naval gun. During the Second Sino-Japanese War, Myōkō participated in the Aomori operation from 10 to 12 May 1938 as flagship of Sentai 9 of the IJN 5th Fleet, along with the Hainan Island operation in February 1939. A second reconstruction and retrofit was completed in April 1941, doubling the number of torpedoes to 16, adding another 8 25mm anti-aircraft guns and bulges to the hull to improve stability. Pacific War invasion of the Philippines. At the time of the attack on Pearl Harbor, Myōkō and Nachi formed Sentai 5 of the IJN 3rd Fleet. Sentai 5 was commanded by Rear Admiral Takeo Takagi, and deployed from Palau cover for the landings of Japanese forces under Operation M, the invasion of the southern Philippine Islands. After covering the landings of Japanese forces at Legazpi on the 11th of December 1941, Myōkō and Nachi returned to Palau and were then reassigned to the Rear Admiral Reizo Tanaka, whose attack force covered landings at Davao on the 19th of December and Jolo on the 24th of December. On the 4th of January 1942, Myōkō and the other vessels of Admiral Tanaka's invasion force were attacked by United States Army Air Force's B-17 Flying Fortress bombers while at anchor at Davao. Myōkō was hit by one 500-pound bomb, causing only superficial damage, but she was dry-docked at Sasebo Naval Arsenal for repairs. Battle of the Java Sea. In the Battle of the Java Sea on 1 March 1942, Myōkō, Nachi and Haguro participated in the destruction of the last remaining Allied fleet units in the Netherlands East Indies. At 11:50, Myōkō, Ashigara and destroyers Akbona and Inazuma opened fire on the damaged British heavy cruiser Exeter and her escort of 2 destroyers. The 8-inch guns of Myōkō helped to sink Exeter and cripple the destroyer HMS Encounter, which had to be scuttled. Later in March, Myōkō received a refit at Sasebo Naval Arsenal. In April, she participated in the unsuccessful pursuit of the Doolittle Raid Task Force. In May, Myōkō was part of the escort for the Tulungi invasion force in the Battle of the Coral Sea, under the command of Rear Admiral Chuichi Hara. This force consisted of the aircraft carriers Shokaku and Zuikakus, the heavy cruisers Myōkō and Haguro, and 5 destroyers. Shokaku was damaged by American aircraft and Zuikaku lost most of her aircraft in the Battle of the Coral Sea, forcing the flotilla to withdraw without invading Port Moresby. In June, Myōkō was part of Vice Admiral Nobuteru Kondo's support force in the Battle of Midway, which included the battleships Kongo and Hiei, the heavy cruisers Haguro, Atigo and Chokai, the light cruiser Yura, the light aircraft carrier Suiho, and 7 destroyers. The support force returned to Sendai in northern Japan on the 23rd of June without engaging the enemy in this battle. Myōkō was sent out on the 28th of June as escort for the reinforcement convoy in the Aleutian Islands campaign. This force included the aircraft carrier Suikakus, the light aircraft carriers Suiho, Junyo and Raijo, the heavy cruisers Maya, Takao, Myōkō, Haguro and Nachi, the light cruisers Abukama, Kizo and Tama. Myōkō returned to Hashirajima on the 12th of July 1942. The Solomon Islands Campaign. On the 11th of October 1942, Myōkō sailed from Truk as part of the IJN 2nd Fleet. This force also included the battleships Kongo and Haruna, the heavy cruisers Atigard, Chokai and Nachi, the light cruiser Isuzu and 12 destroyers. They were followed by Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo's carrier striking force. The mission was the reinforcement and resupply of Japanese troops on the island of Guadalcanal, which had been invaded by American troops in August. Myōkō was attacked on the 14th of September by a flight of 10 USAAF B-17 bombers, suffering light damage. On the 15th of October, she participated in a shore bombardment operation against the American-held Henderson Field together with Maya. Between the 31st of January and the 9th of February 1943, Myōkō, after a refit at Sasebo, took part in the evacuation of Guadalcanal. The force consisted of the carriers Suikaku, Zuiho and Junyo, the battleships Kongo and Haruna, heavy cruisers Ashigara, Takao, Myōkō and Haguro, the light cruisers Nigara and Igano, and 11 destroyers. The Japanese transports were successful in evacuating 11,700 troops from the island. Later campaigns in May 1943, Myōkō and Haguro sailed north to assist in the evacuation of Kisuka. In June, they returned to Sasebo for another refit. Myōkō was equipped with 4 twin-type 96 25mm at-A air gun mounts, and a Type 21 air search radar set was also installed. In response to American carrier aircraft raiding in the Gilbert Islands, Myōkō sorted with Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa's fleet to engage the American carriers. The fleet consisted of the aircraft carriers Shokaku, Zuikaku and Zuiho, the battleships Yamato and Nagato, heavy cruisers Myōkō, Haguro, Tone, Shikamawa, Mogami, Atagard, Takao, Chokai and Maya, the light cruiser Agano, and 15 destroyers. Despite extensive searches, this force failed to make contact with the American striking force and returned to Truk. On the 1st of November, Myōkō and Haguro sailed south from Truk with 2 destroyers, escorting a supply convoy to Rabaul. From Rabaul, Myōkō sailed with the light cruisers Agano and Sendai and 6 destroyers to escort reinforcements to the island of Bougainville. There were 1,000 Japanese army troops carried by 4 fast destroyer transports. The warships sailed ahead of the transports and engaged an American force in the Battle of Empress Augusta Bay at 12:50 on the 3rd of November. The American force of 4 light cruisers and 8 destroyers sank Sendai with 6-inch gunfire. While avoiding the American gunfire, Myōkō collided with the destroyer Hatsukas. Hatsukas fell behind the task force as it withdrew and was finished off by American gunfire. Haguro had received minor damage in the action, and the American destroyer Usfoot was crippled by a long lance torpedo. On the 17th of November, Myōkō arrived at Sasebo for another refit. 8 single-mount 25mm AA guns were added, bringing the total to 24 guns. In January, Myōkō made an uneventful transport run from Truk to Cavien and back. On the 10th of February, while sailing from Truk to Palau with Atago and Chokai and 8 destroyers, Myōkō was attacked by the submarine Permit. The submarine fired 4 torpedoes but all missed. In March, Myōkō and the destroyer Shiratsuyu escorted an empty tanker convoy from Palau to Borneo. On the 6th of April, Myōkō was attacked by the submarine Dace. She fired all 6 bow torpedo tubes, but missed. The submarine Usnata also spotted Myōkō but was unable to maneuver into a position for an attack. Battle of the Philippine Sea. In June 1944, Myōkō participated in the Battle of the Philippine Sea. The Japanese fleet sailed from its anchorage at Tawi-Tawi in response to the American invasion of the Marianas Islands. The Japanese High Command was aware that American heavy bombers based in the Marianas could reach factories and shipyards in the Japanese home islands. This battle was later called the Great Marianas Turkey issued by American sailors, because over 300 Japanese carrier aircraft were shot down in a single day on the 19th of June. Battle of Leyte Gulf. Myōkō participated in the Battle of Leyte Gulf as part of Vice Admiral Kurita's first mobile striking force consisting of 4 battleships and 10 cruisers. As the center force tried to force a passage through the Sibuyan Sea, it was spotted and attacked by U.S. Task Force 38. Although most airstrikes concentrated on the battleship Musashi, Myōkō was hit by a torpedo aft on the starboard side, which damaged her starboard screws. She broke off and headed for Singapore at a reduced speed of 15 knots, arriving on the 2nd of November 1944. After temporary repairs, she departed for Japan with a stop at Cam Bay. En route to Cam Bay, Myōkō was hit by one torpedo from a spread of 6, fired by the submarine Ashigara at 17:35 on the 13th of December 1944 on her aft port side, blowing away her stern and leaving her unable to steer. She went dead in the water. Despite the extensive damage aft, one port screw remained operable and she could make 6 knots. Unable to steer, she was towed by destroyer Tsushio and several other ships to Singapore harbor for repairs. However, there were insufficient materials in Singapore to complete the repairs for both Myōkō and Takao, which was also in harbor for repairs. In February 1945, the harbor commander reported that Myōkō was irreparable at Singapore without more materials, and impossible to tow to Japan. He recommended that Myōkō be kept in Singapore as a floating anti-aircraft battery. This suggestion was approved, and, although both Myōkō and Takao were targeted by British midget submarine attacks on the 26th of July, Myōkō survived the war. Myōkō formally surrendered to Royal Navy units on the 21st of September, and was subsequently towed to the Strait of Malacca and scuttled off at 3.083 degrees north, 100.667 degrees east, 3.083, 100.667 Port Swetnam, Malaya, near submarines I-501 and I-502.